Gaming is the topic we're talking about. If only after all those hours of fighting for screen time when I was a kid, my parents would see the smile I have on my face right now, knowing that all I do is investing into gaming and into game companies. I think they'd be fairly annoyed. I don't think they're listening, so it's okay. But I think there's been one big evolution in gaming, which has happened over the past, call it 1 or 2 or 3 years now, really, around this concept of digital assets that you can actually own. They're not just an expenditure of time or money that you put into a game where you get nothing in return, but instead you actually have a digital asset that you can own, you can collect, you can build out, you can level up, you can sell, you can trade, you can do whatever you want with it. It's really yours. And the fascinating thing that comes out of that is that it really creates sort of an economy within games. And so instead of having a one-to-many economy where you have the game creator who is able to sell their assets to you as a gamer and then never return anything other but fun. Actually, now we have a many-to-many economy where everybody's a participant, everybody can be a creator, everyone can be a seller, a trader, a negotiator, a builder, and it creates a much more inclusive sort of set of primitives for games to build on. And I think that alone is probably one of the most fascinating sort of changes in tech that we've seen, especially in the gaming industry. And we're very lucky to be joined by 4 people who will be sort of speaking from various perspectives. We've got Alex, Anna, and Briyan talking about the games building perspective, and Mark, who you might not recognize on the screen behind us, but this is what he looks like in real life, was the very first player of Sorare and has been very active in various play-to-earn games and Web3 games, and is building BlackPool. So maybe we can start with an intro with you, Alex, and pass it over.
Absolutely, thank you, Max. So my name is Alex. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Trailblazer Games. We are developing a fantasy epic trilogy game on Web3 called Eternal Dragons. My background is I've been in gaming for over 15 years, both at the studios, but also as an entrepreneur. I've been at King, at EA, at Xbox, and my previous company was a platform for analytics and growth for gaming, and another platform I built was for distributing games. Really excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
Excellent. Hi, Alex. Great to meet you. So my name is Anna, and I'm co-founder of Rogue Fox Guild, and we're building a post-apocalyptic multiplayer role-playing game where you play as a scrappy fox and you quest in the barren lands, you earn rewards, and you can trade your items on the marketplace. Essentially, the mission is to show the underdog hero as well, so you can play as a good fox or as a bad fox. But the idea is, of course, for people to play, have fun first and foremost, and of course also have a monetary rewards as well in the form of crypto, or you can use those to level up the items that you win and find. And yeah, it's a bit about my background. I actually have worked in virtual reality, more like gamifying training experiences for the past few years. But my passion is gaming and interactivity and how to use technology and art and create quality games and storytelling experiences that people love. So yeah, it's exciting to be joining the Web3 space in gaming.
Excellent. Okay, I'll go next then. I'm Mark. Good to meet all the panelists today for the first time. And as Max said, I play a game called Sorare, which is probably one of the longest standing Web3 games that started in February 2019. I dabbled in the space in 2018. Prior to that, I was a financial advisor and a real estate broker in various different parts of the world. So gaming is relatively new to me, although, yeah, I came from a generation that played FIFA and Pro Evo and anything football related like that. After a few years of Sorare, again, through Max, we established a DAO, BlackPool DAO, which is a gaming DAO, which invests in yield-generating NFTs. Sorare is quite a dominant part of that DAO because it is a game which is active and yield-generating right from the beginning. We've been very successful in that, and long may it continue. So yeah, I look forward to hearing more about new games that are in various different stages of their journey, and then perhaps sharing with you my experiences of how different economies have gone through the last 3.5 years at Sorare.
Cool.
Hello, everyone. My name is Briyan Cessac. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Screenshot Labs. So we are entertainment-focused Web3 studio. So basically, we are building mainly video games with a strong focus on IP at first. So today we have 2 games that we have called, like one which is called Game of Blocks and the other Everai. Personally, actually, Screenshot is my 3rd company. Always passionate about entrepreneurship, surrounded by really talented people coming from Riot Games to Supercell, focusing with me on trying to develop our brand and what we try to build today. And super excited to be with you guys and invited with Max today to talk about this awesome topic, which is Web3 and video games.
Cool. So maybe we can start with sort of more broadly, Web3 gaming. What exactly is it? I mean, we've heard many terms, whether it's sort of play to earn, play and earn, the ownership economy. You've got sort of totally new primitives that have come in, where, for example, Loot decided to launch this sort of set of text-based items that then anyone could build on top of, sort of fully set of interoperable items that third-party developers can build on top of. You have new economic actors like BlackPool and other DAOs that have come into games. If you take sort of Web3 gaming for you and your definition, what is it? How has it changed? Because I know that there has been quite a lot of evolution of the term over the past couple of months and years due to the sort of the rise and the fall and the rise again of certain markets. But how have you seen it evolve, and where do you think it will be in, not the next 6 months, but in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I'll be happy to share our journey and our experience that when we raised our seed round a few months back, we were building blockchain games. We're now building Web3 games. So that was our pivot. Thing is, the thesis behind it was we really didn't think that the Web3 games that we saw outside were really fun. And we have been building games for many, many years, and we realized that the fun was not really at the core. And the quality itself, it was more of a financial instrument. But at the same time, we saw the potential of ownership that comes with Web3 games. So we decided that was what brought us to this opportunity. But really, the way we start thinking about that and learning through this journey is that the games were not really at the center. It was the community. The community started growing so fast and so strongly and so engaged about our vision that we realized that we were live already, that we needed to have the essentially live ops, engaging with the community, listening to them. And that really shifted our mentality in a sense that we want to, together with the community, build this entertainment platform and IP together. And I think that Web3 is really not just the technology, or technology is part of it, but it's a shift of mentality on how you build products together with the community. So that for us has been crucial during this journey.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love the community element, and I think that's probably everyone working in the Web3 space can say is that community is the core. That's what you're building. There is no longer relationship between you're the creator, you're the seller of a product, and then you ship it, and then users, right? It's more like community is more than that. Community is part of the process of creation. So yeah, I love that, and that's very similar to us. We really focused on building community first, and then executing based on feedback before we've even created, so including them in the process. But yeah, I think going back to the question around play to earn versus play and earn and where it's going, well, clearly, obviously, it's in the name as well, but play to earn, right? You can't, the players in that instance, like with Axie Infinity and some popular games that kickstarted the whole revolution, right? For those of you that don't know, play to earn got established with the idea that almost earning is almost the first thing that you do. It's a game, but there is less of game mechanics, there's less of fun mechanics. You come in to actually earn, and that's what happened, and that's what we're seeing, the shift from there to play and earn. So what the difference is that playing is first, then it's earning. Now, there are 3 billion people on the planet that are gamers, right? So most of us here are gamers. So why don't we use what we love to do and monetize this in some way? So where does the money normally go? It's generally centered around AAA studios, albeit maybe controversial statement, but it's not distributed amongst the people and amongst the economy. It's generally more centralized. So in a decentralized way, finally there is opportunity for people to do what they love and monetize their assets, own their assets. So that's where the term play and earn and Web3 gaming comes from the fact that, yes, it's playing first, and then you can monetize and capitalize on your assets in a crypto and blockchain format.
Yeah, and I think one of the new phrases that will come to pass, hopefully sooner rather than later, is win to earn. You know, again, through Sorare, I'll draw on my experiences there. You know, I helped start the community at Sorare, took it to 100,000 members before passing it on to a dedicated member of staff that they took on. And during that time, as you've said, the community was really influential in helping Sorare shape some of the key decisions and foundations that the game sits upon today. So it's not going and downloading the latest version of something or buying it straight from a software company and just, you know, playing the game until you've completed it. So it's forever evolving. So for me, Web3 is exciting because you're not ever playing the finished product. There's always something that will be evolved, iterated. And the nice thing is that if you've got the right processes in place and the people are prepared to listen, then you can have some sort of influence on how that game journey goes. Meanwhile, you're still benefiting from the ownership of the assets that you've collected or built along the way. But going back to the win to earn, and I think this is prominent to say in Sorare, in the beginning, yes, of course, people, they wanted bums on seats, they wanted users to come and play the game. And there was an opportunity there, an early advantage opportunity, that if you got involved, you bought the NFTs, the chances are if the game became successful, those NFTs would appreciate in value. There was other trading mechanisms that you could do, but just buying and holding the NFTs has proved to have been a very successful initial strategy. From there, new tournaments would appear. And again, because of the numbers of users that were playing, it was relatively easy to feature within the top of the leaderboards, and you could then generate a yield from the assets that you owned. But now, as the game has scaled and scaled and scaled, and I think there's over 150,000 people playing the base entry Division 4 tournaments in our game at the moment, you have to win, or you have to be pretty good at the game to actually continue to yield on a regular basis. You can't just turn up now and say, well, I'm playing your game, please pay me some coins, or I've bought this, so that means I should be entitled to something else in 3 months or 6 months from now. You know, you have to have knowledge, you have to get ingrained in the overall economy of the game, you have to understand the people that you're playing against and the other people that are attracted to the game the same as you. Yes, money helps, having deeper pockets will, accelerate that process. But overall, there are people coming in now that didn't get involved in 2018, 19, 20, that are still doing very well because of a combination of money, but more importantly, knowledge. They've got to grips with the game, they think the game's going to be around, and the more time they invest building that knowledge and being competitive against other fantasy football managers, that can prove beneficial for them. But I think we're hopefully going to start to see all of your games evolve to the point where people don't just turn up and say, thanks, I'll log in every day, I'll have a few dollars or a few coins here and there. They need to roll up the sleeves, actually be good at the game, enjoy the game, and then the results and the accolades will come after that.
Yeah, I think we are all pretty agree here that we're currently experiencing a paradigm shift as for our industry in terms of the way, as used to be free to play for the gaming industry, that's changed everything. Now we are experiencing a new paradigm shift in terms of the play to earn, or the play and earn aspect of it. I really agree as well with everything that has been said about the community. I think there is a huge difference for us that are building games today, that are how we involve with us from the straight beginning, when we are really early into our creative process, all the community behind us, because as well there is passion, there is interest, but there is as well a big importance in Web3, I think, which is economic incentive. And this is basically changing everything as for the IP creation, as for the speed of development, as well as for us game developers, the accountability towards the community, but as well it's increased a lot of pressure on the team as well for us to be able to build good but build fast. And so I think it's a really experimental process at the moment. I don't think there is the perfect recipe. We saw, I don't know who actually here, I would be interested, who know Axie Infinity in the audience? Could you raise the hand? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so eventually, for those of you that knows about it, it's just that I think it's a really incredible thing that happened during the past summer about this actually dynamic with the play to earn, and everybody so interested in all the change that happened, like culturally in Philippines and everything. But I think the big question for us as well as that comes in is how do we make sustainable economy, and how do we actually interact both the game aspect, the community, and the earning aspect in a good way. I think personally, I think it's going to be, again, a paradigm shift. We are in the transition right now towards this direction. And the more the time going to pass, the more over the next few years and months, we're going to have better games, better experiences for the players, for the community. And I'm really interested to see how the things will come out eventually. But I think we are all moving into this direction of trying to be innovators here. And eventually it's going to be super interesting over the next few months to discover what it will be.
Yeah, and if I may add to your question about kind of where this will evolve. So I come from the free-to-play world, and the economy design was at the center. It was sustainable economies. If you look at the top grossing for the past 8 years on mobile, it looks pretty much the same. Those are really successful companies that make a great business out of it. And at the center was, you have free players that love to play, but they wouldn't necessarily spend. And then you have people that wants to progress faster, wants that special item, wants to buy up time, and eventually end up spending that additional amount to have fun. Essentially, you're paying for fun. And that really was at the core. It was the game. The game is fun to play. And I think that on the play to earn, they kind of forgot about that segment, and they skipped to their earn. And then now they're realizing, say, wait a minute, I guess that we're going to have to make it fun too. It's like, so how do you do this? It's like, oh, you need to look at how games used to do it before. It's like, so people wants to play the game, I say, and they want to spend money. Crazy. They didn't just want an immediate financial return out of that. So that's kind of, that's why I think that the play to earn really, it was more of a stage of learning what can be done on Web3. And I see the future of being more of an expansion of free-to-play in a sense that we start adding new actors, new segments to a core aspect of the game, which is, again, having fun. Now you're going to have, essentially you're dealing with new segments. You're dealing with an NFT investor, and an NFT investor may not even ever play the game.
Yes.
But you still want to deliver a game for the investor and an experience that may use Web3 wallets and so on, versus the free player may not even need a wallet to play the game. And if you want to invest in a token, you just want to know how the business is doing overall. I guess that the closest comparison I have to that is in football, where you have the players, which are kind of the NFTs. You have the manager, which is trying to find the best NFTs to play and to win. You have who owns the pass of Messi to see, maybe this is going to go up in value by the next team that may want to buy it based on their performance. You have the shareholders of the game, of the football club, and then you have the fans that go to the stadium, and then you have the people that are watching the game on TV. So it's that whole ecosystem that is really what Web3 enables everyone to participate. They have this sense of community, and in the future, I think that you're essentially going to have your wallet that's going to have your identity, and your identity as in the NFTs will be part of your identity. You're bringing with you to all your games. So it's going to be more about this sense of belonging to different projects in different levels, contributed in different ways, what I think we're going to expect to see. And all games are going to some extent, expect that people are going to bring with them their NFTs, their achievements, their reputation to the different games, and participate on them in a different way. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So then on that note of, you've spoken about sort of community, but also the fragmentation of the community, of the different sort of segments of players, of holders, of collectors, of investors that you might have. and having sort of logged into your Discords and gone through the sort of the various onboarding processes, it's really more like a quest that you're going through before you even launch the game, right? To get into the community, to probably segment me into some category of what I might do or might not do. But if you're spending so much time and so much effort on really getting the community to participate in the creation of the game, because if you look at historic companies, there's been a lot of value at being a privately held company with no external shareholders, and the CEO or the management team had sort of full control of exactly the long-term direction that they're going to take over the next 2 to 5 years, and that gave them enough autonomy to build a great game. If you have all these segmented parts of the community who are sort of pulling you in various directions, someone's more of an earned component, someone the collector's component, someone a fun playing component, how do you make sure that you can keep focused while you build that game? Are you able to really segment enough that actually you create various experiences from the first moment they log in? Or how do you make sure that your community stays united in sort of the long-term vision of what you want to build?
Yeah, you know, I think that is the challenge and the opportunity of Web3, how to do that balance. It's almost like a political process. In our Discord, for example, we have elected positions. For each language, they elect their leader, who we meet, like the founders and those representatives of the community, to listen to kind of what are their needs. And they come from these different segments, as you mentioned, from investor, from what is there in it for me from a play-to-earn perspective. Is it going to be fun for the people that wants to have fun, and so on. And managing that, but still take the leadership and make calls, make decisions, and people will follow. The decisions still are in the development team, but the integrating different views, that is the challenge and that is the opportunity, because if you only listen to a segment, essentially you're not really taking the full opportunity of bringing all these segments together.
If you only listen to Mark on Serere, you might have a lot of the community of Serere that gets very annoyed at him. So,
well, look, the challenge is when you've got a community which is rapidly growing, you're going to have people with different interests, and most people are going to ask the game developers to build out something which is in their own personal interest. So yeah, it turns into a giant game of 4D politics. So yeah, of course, if you're an investor first and foremost in a game and you're looking to play the game to generate a yield, you're of course going to want to ask these people to accelerate the in-game economy, which will then benefit you and the different strategies that you can deploy. If you're wanting to play on a more casual basis, you're probably going to want maybe more cosmetic sort of upgrades and changes and things that make you feel good when you sign in and play the game, that will want to give you reasons to come back again. And yeah, I guess depending on the size of your company and the level of capital you've got at your disposal, you can't please everyone simultaneously. So you've got to choose a path that can hopefully cater for as many of your early followers as possible.
I think that goes back to what we said before about a free-to-play, and you talked about obviously win-to-play. So there is always a balance. For example, things like difficulty, right? How difficult do you make the game? What sort of, depending on the audience, like you said, more experts, gamers that just want to push themselves versus gamers that are more kind of casual gamers as well. So I think it depends on demographic as well. Like you have to define, if you're building a game, you have to define which group are you targeting. Are you targeting more casual gamers? Are you targeting, I think that's still for me is yet to be defined in play to earn, play and earn, should I say, because obviously there is the crypto element. So like, of course, if you make it too easy, then, how do you create a sustainable economy? There is a lot of questions there. But going back to the free to play elements, that's quite interesting because maybe not everyone knows how does that link with the fact that, for example, NFTs are needed to actually play, right? So in our case, what we've done at Rogue Fox Guild, we're saying it is free to play because we want to bring everyone. We don't want to put a barrier that, meaning no one can actually get in. However, we do want to reward people that have invested and minted NFTs and bought their characters, right? So on that basis, it's very carefully you have to balance so it doesn't become like you buy an NFT, you get those bonuses. So it's then really skewed towards you. You have the money, you can win, right? You can win easier versus if you don't have the money to invest into NFTs and play with them. So it's a constant balancing act of like how do you make a sustainable economy versus your users. But the best thing is, yes, to analyze your own user base or own players, and that kind of links with the economic model. You have to really think about that deeply. And like you said, if you have a lot of capital investment at your disposal, maybe that skews things a little bit because you have more, like you said, more capital to play with and build something. Maybe then that kind of at point maybe breeds some detachment from the player base a little bit. There is just a danger there. But generally speaking, the key is really to keep talking to your players and really understand who your players are and what they really want, which is same in Web2 gaming, really. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah, so one thing I would add that is similar to Web2 is that I think what you mentioned is about game design in the end. How we bring all of this together. It has been solved on free-to-play. On free-to-play, essentially, you manage to bring together people that wouldn't spend a dime on the game, but still want to play, and people that are competitive and want to move forward. And they coexist in a very harmonious way. So the game design challenge is how to incorporate now NFT investor in a way that is harmonious, and not destructive or not too speculative to the whole economy, makes it grow faster. But I would say that at the core, you want to have, I think we can all agree that you want to have a game that's fun to play, where people want to spend money for entertainment and not just for a future return. So I think that what's going to be common ground for all the games going forward is that come back to the basic of why you want to play a game, which is for entertainment, and the rest will follow. And you can add more of this ability of investing and teaming up with other people's assets to be more successful and so on. But I think this is a super interesting game design challenge as part of this, to be honest.
Actually, I think my personal opinion is that we tend to not really analyze well what's currently going on what I lived throughout the past few months. We've been building like a first game. Right now we have a second IP. And I think we tend to forget that actually people that we are actually interacting right now are not necessarily players, but investors. And I think for me it's a huge difference and the way we need to perceive them, because they are almost like a VC. They are like, believing in the team, believing in the project, believing in the vision. And I don't know how much amount of number and split we can say here, but I know in my community and in my games I have different profile, and in those profile, a huge amount of the people are economic incentivized or investors profile, and so it's kind of, I think it's a huge challenge for our current paradigm shift with Web3 economy and game, is that how we pass from investors towards gamers and towards the mass market. And I think right now we whenever you spoke just before, Max, about how do we actually build while actually listening to the community at the same time, and this is where it's super tricky, because if you just listen to the short term, people are investors, they just want return and just want ROI, and so basically as a game developer, you're just gonna make bad decisions long term. You're just going to try to focus on the short term. And so as for us game developers or IP developers or any creator, that we have a huge challenge right now as a creator to how do we reconcile both short-term, mid-term, and long-term vision while giving to the short-term people, which is more the investor profile, their visibility and projection capacity for their capital invested. And the second line is how do we actually say we're going to make a product that is going to be fun to play, we're going to be to have some incentive as well, and which is going to be balanced. So I think this balance is really hard to find right now, and I think we tend to wrongly focus on the game, because I think we almost forget the game part. We just focus too much, because as well the investor people are much more vocals as well in our communities, and so they tend to push us to focus on the short term. So we have again more accountability towards the community, which makes us focus more short term as well, and we try as well to coincide with the midterm roadmap. So I think again, really hard to make, but it's a huge challenge for, I think, our industry right now to how do we do that in the good way, and I think eventually the answer is going to come out in a few years from now.
Yeah, and maybe this is actually an interesting segment to sort of jump over to the question of IP, because I think actually, ultimately, if you build out the IP and in various ways, and we sort of can touch upon some of them, given these assets that you issue are permissionless and anyone can build on top of them, maybe one of the strategies, and that sort of Axie Infinity, for example, shared recently, is to fund other teams to come build experiences and games on top of the assets that you've already issued. I know Sarah has experimented quite a bit in this as well. But so bringing it all back to the question of IP, how do you create your IP that's your sort of lasting value that you have in the market, going from whether it's sort of MLB champions or to the NBA Top Shot or Sorare with sort of the sports world, where they've sort of locked in or even in some cases lost some of the IP rights over the coming years for specific, whether it's video rights, image rights, fantasy league rights, or whether you're building your own IP, like Alex, Anna, and Brian are. I know Brian is a topic that we've discussed very extensively in terms of sort of how you bring in different artists, different IP creators, how you create a lore, how you create a story around it. How are you thinking about that? And is that really your core asset at the end of the day? If ultimately these assets can be used by many creators, by many game developers, by many content creators that lock you in as the sort of the central point as the IP holder, IP creator.
So you mean in terms of like how do we manage that?
Yeah, how do you think about IP? Do you think, is it the core element of the strategy that you have? Yeah. How do you expand your IP? Do you work with, I mean, I know you work with multiple artists. How are you thinking about that over the coming years?
So basically, my point here is that I think the best leverage of NFTs in our ecosystem is IP. For me, that's my belief. That's a belief on my team. We think that we can create much faster IP in a shorter amount of time with a much stronger word of mouth with the community, helping us expanding the visibility of the brand and increasing our capacity eventually to make partnerships with artists, with brands as well, internationally. So we completely went with my team on this direction of you have eventually many options. So Rare did this, which is for me, I think one of the best example in our space is that they use amazing IPs that are the football club right now, baseball, and all the other IPs that are going to come out eventually that are established IP they're going to use to leverage a huge visibility and capacity for them to create business on the top of that. And I think our decision was to go maybe on the harder way, which is building an IP from scratch. And to do so, our belief was we need to be able to be surrounded by the best on the IP side as well on the experience side. And so creating, really high-level art in our case, where we base more ourselves into a Disney kind of model, where we want to really create lore, storytell universe with really talented artists, where we're going to actually try to deliver experiences. And by doing that, we're going to eventually increase our user base, being able to deliver on the short term really strong experiences and as well value for the holders. That's going to enable us to develop much faster the IP and looking towards more the midterm and long term, which is the video game. So my belief in that is that I think it's really, it's in this conciliation of having those short term, midterm, and long term like targets. I believe midterm and long-term video games are what's going to make the difference. But I think on the short term, what we need to have is strong community. Mm-hmm. And our community, as I said, I think are really related to the investor profile. And investor profile want to have value. They want to be able to project themselves and to be able to have short-term goals to be targeting at. So this is what we currently focus at, and this is the belief of my team.
I think from the sporting IP point of view, the thing that's really attractive for me as a football fan, as a Liverpool fan, is that when you have your sporting team or a particular player or something that you have bought into, it's a new way to consume that particular product. And I think where Sorare is at on its journey at the moment, certainly with football, and it'll probably follow suit with baseball and hopefully other sports as well, is that it is changing the way in which people consume the sport itself. So it started out as a collector hobby, picking up some cards. Then there were some side games that were introduced that you could use those cards. Then there was the competitive elements. But now it's got to the stage where the IP is global. So we can be watching games in Japan, in Korea, in Argentina, in Brazil. And then we've got all of the European leagues, of course. You're finding that the people that are owning these NFTs now are taking a genuine interest in consuming sport in a different way. Football's a 90-minute game, but I would imagine that most of the people on Sorare will take bite-size clips of watching 2-3 minutes of a K-League game or a J-League game or a game in a country that they don't live in, and I think that's really exciting because what that allows you to do is foster and go back to the early community and really put that community on steroids, and there's nowhere else that they need to go then to follow their passions. So you might have your own bookmarks to I'll go and check my scores here, or I'll go and check the stats of this particular player or team there, where slowly but surely the native platform itself is building that in, so as someone coming in and buying an NFT, it's not, going back to the last question, at the moment I think the challenge is really tough for you guys because, you're at a stage where you're trying to win users from people that are going in with an economic mindset saying, I'm going to play here, I'm going to spend my day here, and I'm going to get that money out. Otherwise, I'm going to go to your game where you're paying even more for me to turn up and play that game. I think somewhere like Sorare, again, if you can create an environment where you're attracting users to consume your products, the NFT becomes a little bit less prominent, which is good. But more importantly, people can then pay to spend their time there. You will start attracting casual users that, going to the cinema and spending 20, 25 quid. You walk out the cinema, you're 25 quid down, but you've paid to have that enjoyment. People go to football matches and pay thousands of pounds to get tickets because that's the team they support, or they're going to follow a particular player. So linking this with experiences, the NFTs can unlock so much more. But my overall point is that you guys are now competing against games which are 3-4 years down the line, which are able to offer people more than just an economic incentive. So you're going to need to build a pretty kick-ass game from the get-go to attract these people and keep them there at the expense of them using their time elsewhere.
And I think actually, so bringing it back to third parties that might create content around games. On Sorare, we've seen the sort of Sorare Mega, Sorare Data, all created their own experiences, which in the case of Sorare Data, I think pretty much everybody uses at this point. But if you have the strategy that IP is core, IP is sort of the pillar that you own and that creates value for you, how do you incentivize these third-party participants to create other experiences when they inherently don't own that IP, so they don't have that incentive? Are you thinking about further down the line funding third-party teams to do that? Are you thinking around how maybe some of the revenues or royalties from your primary sales can be split with them? Or maybe for all the volume that they generate via marketplace, they maybe get a share as well? Is that something that you've considered, or is that sort of for further down the line?
I think yes, with Web3 it's all about partnerships. So yes, while you're right, that might be more difficult if you have your own IP that is very unique, very particular. I think the interoperability that we talked earlier is key, right? So how do games partner? So you can, for example, take your fox, right, and go in a different game that is with cats, say, Cat Quest, I don't know. You go and explore with your fox in a different world, right? So that's where the future is. No one can live in an isolation, and I think that's the beauty of Web3, of how do you combine assets, how do you combine IP, like what the Bored Apes, everyone maybe here knows the Bored Apes, they did that with, which ones did they, not Crypto Kitten, but Cool Cats, and the World of Women, right? They find partnerships that they combine the IPs, they create universes that are multiverses, right? They have different worlds, different environments, even if they're completely different as a theme. It's key to do that because you can't survive in isolation, I think, in my mind. So going back to what you said, yes, it is difficult. It is difficult to get in. And I can say from the point of view of a creator, right? We are creators at Rogue Fox Guild. We are the doers, and that's probably quite rare, right? You have a lot of business heads, for example, getting into this world, and it's like, let's raise funding. I've never created a product before, and I just want to raise funding. I just want to get the money in. In our case, that's why the IP is key, and I think that's what back to what you said, Alex. That then you get the users with the mission, with the quality product. They have to love what you do. You can't just be selling NFTs and get people to get in. They have to love your product, love the team, love where you're going, and then you have a success story. But yes, it is difficult. Yeah. But I think for me, innovation is to create your own IP and not to solely rely on what's being done in the years to come. Otherwise, we'll just never move away from Marvel, right? All that we have is Marvel and Disney, and that's it. There's not going to be new players to the field. You have to create something new.
No, I couldn't agree more. So actually, on our path, we also started, creating our own IP. IP it's at the center. These dragons are the characters that you can use in the trilogy of games that we've created. But one thing that I would dissent a little bit is in terms of timing, like how fast to push the partnerships in terms of using your NFTs in other games and bringing other community. I think that there's a moment and time for that to happen. I think that what's really important to nail now is an awesome experience, which I don't believe it really exists on Web3 much. I mean, if you ask any of the regular players to go set up a wallet, you know, in order to start playing on web, but you can download this on mobile. Yeah, no, you can't do that on the App Store now, but trust me, this website is gonna work really well. All the hoops that they need to go to even try to play a game, all of that need to be sorted. And our approach to create this MVP of, okay, how does the future of gaming look like when you have the community involved, when you have your own IP, when you have your game, and from a technical perspective, try to cover those gaps that exist in experience and try to interact with blockchain in a way that you can actually not tell anyone that there's blockchain behind. Hopefully it's completely transparent. I think Soraya has done an amazing job on connect the fiat world with buying cards, even though in the back end it's actually things running on blockchain. So I think that needs to be sorted first, and we personally want to try the experience of reusing an NFT in a way that makes sense for the next game and for the next game, not just because it can be used in another game means that it's valuable to use it in another game. And I think that eventually we will want to expand to work with partners, but you care, when you build an IP, you care about the quality and the experience of the customers that are engaging with that IP in a way that is consistent with your own vision that you have created for it. So I think that rushing into that may devalue the IP. So you want to be, selective and get to the point where you want to give that opportunity, but working with the right partners. Once you have solidified, that there's product market fit of your IP and customer. At least that's our thesis.
I think there's, and just because I see we have 2.5 minutes left, and I wanted to get one final question in on this topic of sort of onboarding. How do you sort of make sure that if you have created a bunch of IP, you have a great game, you have people coming into your game, that their experience is as seamless as possible when they show up. And you alluded to it a bit earlier, in the sense that your assets that you own from other games, and coming back to the interoperability question, they might actually segment you into one character class that should affect how you onboard into a game, right? So if in the sort of Web2 gaming, you could see that when I play Call of Duty, I like to use a sniper. When I play League of Legends, I like to play mid or AD carry or whatever my typical roles might be. Well, then when I log into your game, that is all publicly available information, and you should be able to segment me into that category of, here, this is what you should build out, this is what you should buy, this is given on your historic sort of experience, this is what you like. Abstract away all the blockchain elements, because I think, unfortunately, the gaming community historically has been quite anti-NFTs for various reasons. So that is, I think, a core element that I know you've been thinking about, but maybe some of you guys can also speak about in terms of how do you onboard users? What is the first experience that they get when they log into your website? What do they see? What are they confronted with? What do they need to do? And how do they start engaging with your game? And sorry, Brian, I know you were going to answer the other question as well. But
I can talk a bit quickly, because that's my background, UX designer, right? So I've worked in design. So essentially, it has to be simple for the users to understand. It has to be very instructive as to, it has to be seamless. Good design is seamless, right? That's what you said about us. If Sorare, I'll check it out. It seems like you've nailed it around, basically has to be in the background. It can't be very technical and okay, you've got to install so many things. You have to, this is the problem that the blockchain is having at the moment. And it's kind of this technical jargon. I struggle, and that's the truth. It has to be so simple that anyone can just go in, click a button, play, that's it. It has to be in the background to incorporate and encompass the majority of users from different demographics, non-tech users as well. And yeah, this is something that I personally am very, very passionate. I'm also kind of pushing forward for this kind of usability and simplicity. So this is how you bring the world into Web3 gaming.
I just want to...
Feel free to answer the previous one as well.
Yeah.
But 16 seconds.
I absolutely agree with that, what you were saying as well on Sorare. I think ultimately we want to be global. We want to be mass market. We want to be creating games for millions of people. So what we want to have is seamless experience without even necessarily having these problematics of onboarding and everything. And I think, again, Sorare was quite of a good exposure for that and experience. So on my opinion, on the way that I perceive things as well, is how do we onboard the most of the people into what we do? And I just wanted to say something about the things that you said about how do you incentivize people. I think, on the IP side, and how do you make difference? I think what is amazing. Again, like, I think our ecosystem is just about a tool. NFT is a tool, and ultimately the goal is the same. We just want to build games. We just want to make entertainment for millions of people. Either it's IP, either it's video games. The goal, the product is the same, kind of in the end. And the NFT is just a tool, and but it's an amazing tool to be used necessarily specifically on the secondary market. I think we tend to forget something, but what makes these ecosystems incredible is that we can write straight ahead by creating something with someone, incentivizing to your success straight ahead from the beginning on all the sales that are going to happen throughout all forever. And you can incentivize artists, you can incentivize brands. Me as a company, I have secondary market. I can say tomorrow as well that I want to incentivize a newcomer, a new partner that will come in with me, that eventually is going to help me or whatever. And I can incentivize everyone to my success as well. And I think this is a tool that eventually is a game changer and that we don't use, in my opinion, enough. And what we tend to do, us, as Screenshot, is that we try to incentivize the artists to the best possible way, because it increases their involvement as an investor, as a worker, as a shareholder for a company. And I think it's one of the biggest leverage that we have, and that we should be using the best way possible.
Yeah, that's the opportunity. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think we're out of time, but thank you very much for joining us. I think I'm personally very excited as to where Web3 Gaming is heading. Collective building of fun, which should be the most important thing that we're doing today. So, thank you.